a need for a public town square, digital town square that where people can debate issues of all kinds, including the most substantive issues. And in order for that to be the case, you have to have something that is as broadly inclusive as possible, that has as much of the people on the platform as possible, where it feels balanced from a political standpoint. It's not biased one way or the other, and where the system is transparent. This is why I think it's important to put the algorithm on GitHub and actually allow the public to see it and critique it and improve it. And if there are any manual changes, sort of shadow banning, as it's called, or increasing or decreasing the prominence of a tweet, that's done manually, that should be noted, so you know what has happened. Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like this is not right. Like this is the issue here is that there's just the Democratic Party is overly controlled by the unions and by the trial lawyers, particularly the class action lawyers. And generally, if you'll see something that is not in the interest of the people, on the Democrat side, it's going to come because of the unions, which is just another form of monopoly, and the trial lawyers. That's where actions will be happening from the Democrat side that are not in the interest of the people. And then, to be fair, on the Republican side, there's if you say like where there's something like not ideal happening, it's because of corporate evil and religious zealotry. That's generally where the bad things will be coming from on the Republican side, that are not representative of the people. So. In the case of Biden, he is simply too much captured by the union. This question requires thought, and I'll probably be leaving out quite a few things. But if you look at, say, what does a typical car company do? What they do is they assemble vehicles and they send them to dealers, and they manage the supply chain. They might make the engine, or typically will make the engine, but most of the parts are made by suppliers, and a lot of the actual technology development is done by suppliers, and most of this vehicle software is done by suppliers. So the actual amount of real work done by car companies, what you think of sort of like a GM or Ford, is not actually that much. So they don't do sales, they don't do service. So in the case of Tesla, for example, we do our own sales and service. We don't have dealerships. Then Tesla also has by far the biggest network of superchargers, sort of the electric equivalent of gas stations. Through complex traffic, it's really quite sophisticated. And I invite anyone to join the beta or look at the videos of those who are in the beta. We've got like 100,000 people in the beta, so it's not tiny. And we'll be expanding that to, I don't know, probably a million people, or a million, I don't know, so on that order by the end of the year. So it's
you had this slide.
We also built a chip team because there wasn't hardware that we could run the friggin' AI on. We couldn't just fill the trunk with a whole bunch of GPUs. Because they would have taken a trunk full of GPUs that would have been very expensive and take a massive amount of power and cooling, just to be able to do what the Tesla designed full self-driving computer can do. So, and we started a chip team from scratch, designed it. It was the best in the world, and still is the best in the world several years later. And we're also then we're designing a Dojo supercomputer to be able to process all the video that's coming in from billions of miles of data, because just sort of like the way that it's very difficult to compete with Google because they have so much data and they have all this people doing searches all the time, and humanity is training it. I mean, it's not out of the question. Okay. But I really would, this is, the more questions I ask, the more my concerns grow. So, at the end of the day, acquiring it has to be fixable, and fixable, with reasonable time frame and without revenues collapsing along the way and all that sort of stuff. And so, I really need to see how these things are being calculated, and it can't be some deep mystery that is like more complex than the human soul or something like that. It's got to be, I think we can apply the scientific method to this and try to figure out what's really going on. Sure. Well, for those that have used WeChat, I think WeChat's actually a good model. If you're in China, it's basically, you kind of live on WeChat. It does everything. It's sort of like Twitter plus PayPal plus a whole bunch of other things, and all roll into one with actually a great interface. And it's really an excellent app. And we don't have anything like that outside of China. So I think such an app would be really useful. And just like the utility of it, of sort of a spam-free thing where you can make comments, you can post videos, you can, I think it's important for content creators to have a revenue share. Now this does not need to be done on Twitter. It could be done from something that's created from scratch. Yes, we were on the ragged edge of bankruptcy so many times it was ridiculous. And 2008 was one of the worst years, where basically GM and Ford, so GM and Chrysler, Ford almost went bankrupt, and trying to raise money for a startup electric car company in 2008 while GM was going bankrupt was difficult to say the least. People were angry that I even asked them for money. They're like, "Fuck you," and hang up. So the only way that Tesla actually made it through 2008 was a subset of the existing investors, which includes like people like Antonio Gracias and Steve Jobson and a few other key people, Ira Ehrenpreis, who I hold a debt of gratitude to this day. And I put in all the money I had left, and they said everything, literally everything. Well, I mean, it's somewhat of a roller coaster. So there are like good days and bad days, and there are also crisis issues. And like sort of knock on wood, like we're not like facing death in the face. Like it's definitely like quite stressful when like death is like trying to eat your face off, and like the foam is like just getting and like right there. It's pretty stressful in that situation. So like both SpaceX and Tesla have significant cash reserves. So like it's not we're staring death in the face. We can sort of see it over in the horizon, so I don't want to get complacent or entitled, because but if it's not like just sort of foaming at the mouth and gnashing, trying to eat your face off on a daily basis, that's certainly we've moved on from that point.